Do you have me on camera?
I see him.
To this episode of the Yada Yahowah. Today is Thursday. It's the 4th of September, 2025. And we're happy to be able to continue our series on the Antichrist. I'm here with Rich and with Leah, and we are going to resume where we left off in our last program. Just a word, though, on the title of this program, the Antichrist series. It's important to recognize that there was no Christ. The whole mythos of Jesus is a product of identity theft, something that Paul in 52 CE conceived by ripping off, literally robbing the actual Messiah and Son of God, our Savior, Dode David, of his achievements and accolades. This is something that makes God exceedingly angry. So I'm doing Christians and Jews, as well as Muslims, a tremendous service by telling you, that to pretend that there was a Jesus Christ who was crucified in 33 CE is nothing but angering God. And this is because God has told us quite the contrary. He told us in no uncertain terms, boldly and bluntly and many times over, that his Messiah, our Messiah, is his beloved Son and our Savior, the former and returning King, whose name is Dode. It means beloved. And so we're using the term Antichrist, well, first because we are Antichrist, as is God. But also
Definitely.
because it is a term that is known, and we have identified the figure that the world has long sought. It's going to be a shock to many. But the man that is already demon-possessed, the copper confabulator, the great betrayer of Israel, is none other than the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Now, we determined this in a most recent return to the prophecies presented by Dode as Gabriel, God's most capable man, Michael, who was Yada, and Elia, the final witness, as they spoke to Daniel circa 555 BCE and foretold exactly what's going to happen, when, where, why, and how, so that no one would be surprised. And we returned to this text because I wanted to be certain that we had all of our dates correct. I did not know at the time that we would also be identifying the Antichrist, but we have done both. And so we're going to continue this program. Again, we're broadcasting, as you could see in the distance as I was walking towards our library studio, from the Virgin Islands in the midst of the Caribbean Sea. And it is a lovely place to be able to be a bit isolated from a world that has gone mad with anti-Semitism, and to be able to focus on the story that God wants you to know. As a program note, I will say that I was able yesterday, and again working on refining it today, to complete what will be the 35th book on the shelf at yadayah.com, 36th once we have the story of In the Company that brought me to this position available, which will be before very long. And this is the 9th volume now of the Yada Yahowah series. The story is about the time of trouble, and it's about 770 pages. And that book will be available fairly soon. I want to do one more edit pass through it and we'll be ready to present it to you. And there are some shocking revelations in it that are exceedingly pertinent to our time. As a matter of fact, this series that we're providing right now, it is actually based on the essence of that book. So returning to where we were in our last program, I was sharing with you that in the end, Wah-bah Akareth, during the last days, speaking of the rebellious and defiant ones, we learned that their empire, their realms over which they have reigned, will be finished. Now, there was a hot mic incident yesterday in China where they were having their grandiose military parade. And you had Xi sitting next to Putin. And they took a walk at the end of it, and they had a hot mic. And Putin was explaining how it is possible now to live almost forever, becoming younger by harvesting organs and transplanting organs. Now, it sounded exceedingly perverse, of course, but it shows just how these evil and defiant ones are convinced that they're going to live forever. Mm-hmm. We studied the story of Alexander in previous chapters. The reason that there was no plan to carry on after his death is that he
thought he would live forever.
He didn't think he was ever going to die.
That's right.
Muhammad was exactly the same thing. He had no plans for succession either, because Allah had told him he was going to live forever too. And oh, by the way, with Alexander and with Muhammad, with Paul, who was also demon-possessed, with Donald Trump, with Xi and with Putin, they are going to get their request. Mm-hmm. They are going to live forever. They're just not going to like where they're going to live. Yes. Because they call this place Sheol, and it is akin to a black hole where time exists eternally, but nothing and no one ever escapes. And so they will be finished in terms of their presence here on the earth, and their annoying empires will be gone. God's going to purge the entire earth of religiosity, of politics, of militarism, of conspiracy, so that we can return to the conditions experienced in the Garden of Great Joy of Eden. What was the religion of Eden, just so that I can convey that properly to our listeners?
Not a single religion.
Oh, there was none. Yeah, that's correct, isn't it? What was the politics then? Certainly there was a political...
No political parties.
What about conspiracies? God had to have a good conspiracy, right?
Not until Hashatan came along, no.
But Hasatan's going to be banished too, so no conspiracy. So okay, there was a military, right?
No.
Protecting their... No military either.
No flag either.
Yikes. So God does, in fact, have to rid the planet of all traces of religion, politics, militarism, and conspiracy for us to return to Eden. Mm-hmm. Well, that is the story. So all of this stuff is going to be wiped away. In God's parlance, the way that he does this, it's going to actually happen on Towrah. If you want to mark your calendars, that's going to be the 24th of September in 2033. That's year 6,000 Yah.
Mm-hmm. Day of days.
And Day of Days. And on that day, Yahweh is going to start two blazes. Yeah. One is going to be in the heart of Jerusalem, right on the Temple Mount. Mm-hmm. And that is to ignite the flames under the sacrifice of the Atsam, this bloody red man who has become a productive bull.
What the rabbis think is a red heifer.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for a red cow, I'm sorry, you're...
Yeah, very.
Once he has done that, and we'll have Elijah will be the master of ceremonies, and he's going to release cleansing waters underneath the Temple Mount, and it's going to purge the mortal remnant of Israel who have been brought from all around the world for this great spectacle. But at the same time, he's going to ignite another blaze, and he speaks specifically of it devouring the militant, the religious, the political,
those who
the conspiratorial.
Beni Israel,
they're all gone, and all traces of their weapons and their buildings and everything else is gone. Their religious apparel gone, and it's
What a
all going to be
wonderful idea.
ash. It'll serve as fertilizer for this return to Eden as God terraforms the entire earth, purging it of all the pollution that has happened previously as we re-enter the conditions that were experienced in Eden.
What a wonderful day that'll be.
So this is the day, if you want to know when Donald Trump's and Z's and Putin's and Zelensky's and MBS,
When they're getting their comeuppance,
when they have their confirmed reservation for Sheol, it is on the 24th of September in 2033. This goes on to say the authorized embodiment of political, religious, and military power will arise and he will present himself with fortified and empowered presence and as an appearance. So for it to be ended, it must be begun. And there's going to be a rise of considerable political influence that is going to be positioned in Jerusalem. You know, those Twistians that are enamored with the book of Revelation, which is nothing but a poor job of paraphrasing and plagiarism, and some from spurious sources like Ezekiel, which is a pilfered source, and he's a false prophet. Oops. But they are of the belief that there's going to be a one world government.
Yes, they do believe
God
that.
never says that.
No.
God doesn't care about the world. Really doesn't. Has no interest in the planet. His interest in the last days happened to be with his people. Now he is going to scour his planet to find the Goyim and the Yehudim who can be purged, who are not so religious, not so political, not so corrupt, who have the right attitude and aptitudes that they'll make good company during the millennial celebration of Sukkah and the Shabat. And he's going to bring them all to Israel to be purged while he wipes off the face of the earth all others, all the overtly religious and political and conspiratorial and militaristic. And so this Torah-less one, who I've told you, the corporeal embodiment of the spirit of Satan, as was the case with Paul, likely with Akiba, probably with Maimonides, certainly with Hitler, but absolutely with Muhammad, and now with Donald Trump, is going to come into Jerusalem and is going to set up shop in Jerusalem. He's going to arrive on the 29th of January during the last week of Ramadan of that year. And he is going to announce that he is both God and man, and claim supremacy, certainly of Israel, while he begins to measure for the grand edifice that he wants to build, not just on the Temple Mount, but it'll pave over all of Jerusalem, as it's laid out in the book of Ezekiel, with the copper-colored man being the real estate developer that is measuring all of these things for this grand edifice to be built.
Yeah, the first thing a builder does is survey the land.
Yeah. And what we're going to find is that this individual, according to Daniel, has goatish comb-over hair. He is very old. In fact,
specific.
he is, by this time, he's actually in a wheelchair, but with very gaudy wheels, something that is very Trumpian. It explains how he puts together a group of 10 people to be sycophants for him, to essentially be his clown chorus. And they are going to collectively tell Israel that, oh, we have your best interests at heart. We're protecting your security as Muslims ravage them. We'll have Al-Aqsa 2.0 going on at the time. It'll be 1,000 times worse than Al-Aqsa flood.
And they will do nothing about
that transpired on October 7th in 2023. Millions of Jews are going to die. I mean, this is the consequence of this. Billions of people around the world will also die. But it's going to be a horrible time. And so this authorized embodiment of political, religious, and military power will arise, and he, being this corporeal manifestation of the adversary, is going to present himself with a fortified and empowered presence then one will come to understand. One will distinguish himself and determine what is right and what is wrong. He is going to differentiate between truth and fiction. He's going to make the proper, thoughtfully resolve. This is bien, one of my favorite of all Hebrew words. And it's one of the things that Yahweh provided his choder with, the spirit of bien, understanding. And he is going to then comprehend the answer to the riddles and the enigmas, the hard questions that needed to be solved, the most challenging mysteries and intriguing analogies, wisely resolving the most perplexing ambiguities while taunting the sources of ignorance and intrigue. It was written in the participle, which means it has ongoing implications, and it is a very vivid expression of these things. And it is a verbal noun describing a singular masculine individual. Daniel, my God, is judgmental. 8:23.
Sounds like a preemptive eulogy.
Yeah, we're running out of time, of course. We're now studying the book of Daniel. We're in the 8th chapter. We've gone through the 7th. We jumped ahead to the 12th. We're now nearing the completion of the 8th. We will review the entire 9th. And for the first time, all of the analogies have been explained. The puzzle has been completely solved. We know when everything is going to transpire and who the players are between now and then. But it's more than just Daniel. We just finished a translation and commentary on Bamidbar, Numbers 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15.
Wow. Yeah.
And in that, we came to understand why it was that Moshe gave up on the children of Israel and how that pertains to our time today. We understand how God said, I'm going to solve this problem with a couple of fellas, and they're going to be empowered by the Spirit. It's the Almighty's Dode, and my Dode, his Goyim right hand. And we've come to understand how they are collectively the greater and lesser luminaries who provide the signs of the Moed, of the fulfillment of the 7 Moed Mikre that Yahweh has established in the 4th day of creation. And then this story leads through the episode of Moshe's sister turning on him and causing an uproar, and then claiming that she spoke for God. And we have Yahweh's response to that, which is something we had to respond to quite recently with a psychopath, with a psychopath woman that has lured many away. And you realize that in doing so, she provided a great favor for us because she lured away people who were not fit to spend eternity with us. The scheme was so shallow, so stupid that if you can be fooled by it, then you don't belong in Shamaim. And so we're able to explore all of that and understand the penalty of leprosy and the penalty of divorce, and how someone
Shamaim is very merit-based.
Yes, we found someone who was in the inner circle, who was forever estranged from God. And so we understand how that is possible because we're dealing with a fractured family with Yisrael and with the covenant. This then led to one of the more amazing stories ever recorded. And I think now for the first time ever understood.
Yeah.
And that is the story of the Spies, which is actually a dove suffering from circular reasoning that's in search of a bowl, that tries to spy out and investigate sending her flying monkeys all around.
Yeah.
The promised land that
They're everywhere.
she and her ilk will never enter.
Mhm.
It is quite the story, and what we find is Israel being belligerent to such an extent. God just finally said, "I've had it with you."
Yeah.
Everyone over the age of 20, so that is the age of accountability.
Yep.
Everybody over the age of 20, with exception of 2. Moshe wasn't even one of the 2.
Died.
Yosha, and most importantly, Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be the only 2 that will enter the promised land. The rest of you are dead. You're going to be nothing but a pile of corpses. So this idea that God wants to save everybody, untrue. This idea that God loves everybody, absolutely untrue. The notion that God is going to answer your prayers and accommodate you, absolutely untrue.
The idea that you can rewrite his Torah,
absolutely untrue. God offered them the promised land. They entered the promised land. They slandered it. They spit in God's face. They lied about what they had seen. Mm-hmm. And they created another rebellion where they wanted to stone the 2 men that God was going to save, because there were 2 men, one in particular, Caleb, who provided an accurate and favorable report. And so God just said, "I'm done with you. I'm not going to allow you into the promised land, and I will never speak to you again." And they all died.
Of corpses.
They all died. And so while Israel now, the children of Israel, was nothing but a bunch of youngsters under 20s, which today would be a real mess, because they'd been indoctrinated and Marxism and couldn't think their way out of a wet paper bag. But back then, these 20-somethings, I'm not sure they were any better than their parents. In fact, I'm pretty sure they weren't, because of what transpired thereafter. But God, in the 15th chapter of Bamidbar, Numbers, lays it all out. Everything. He tells you exactly the plan that he is going to deploy. And we're talking about puzzles here to be solved, and riddles, and to coming up to understand the intriguing analogies.
There it is.
God presented a plan that revolved around 3 fellas.
Yeah.
One of those fellas was presented both as a lamb and a ram. Mm-hmm. That would be Dode, David. He's also as the AL, the Passover lamb. He is the doorway to life, and he is the mightiest of trees. That is what AL means.
And Yahweh's firstborn son.
He is Yahweh's firstborn, his Bakor. Oh, by the way, this is a story that is told 400 years before Dode was born.
Yeah, amazing, right?
So he's talking about his beloved son, the Passover lamb, the mightiest of the trees. That would be the tree of lives. Mm-hmm. And the doorway to life, that's the one who fulfills Passover. 1,500 years before he would fulfill Passover, 400 years before he would be born.
I'd say that's pretty prophetic.
And it actually doesn't start the story with the lamb and ram. Nope. He starts the story with a bull.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. God's got a bull. I got a guy.
I got a guy.
That guy is the Parah. Par sometimes, Parah sometimes, Bakar sometimes. A whole host of words that God has for bull.
I like Yada.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that bull happens to be Yada. He is the Adam of Parah. He is that man from Edom who is going to be sacrificed, just as Dode gave up his corporeal body to fulfill Pesach. As the lamb, I have the distinction of giving up my corporeal body to fulfill Teruah. As the story is told of the Adam of Parah, the red heifer in Bamidbar, Numbers 19, to purge the religious woman of Numbers 5 of her religious guilt, so that she can be betrothed to the returning king
who is that ram, Dode. And of course, there's one more individual in that story.
A goat.
A goat. There is indeed a goat.
A wily little goat.
And that goat is Elia. And he is the master of ceremonies during the sacrifice of the red heifer, the Adamah Parah. He is the co-witness with Yada, the bull, during the last 3.5 years of the time of trouble. And he will be one of the 3 men who lives 3 lives.
Yep.
Who will give up his corporeal body and join the rest of us as immortals. On him offering his on Kippurim, so that Dode, dressed as the high priest, as our Messiah and King, God's beloved Son, can anoint the Kipporeth, the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant, in keeping with the Torah's instructions on the Day of Reconciliations. Sun sets 6:22 p.m. in Jerusalem on October 2nd, 2033, year 6000 Yah, the 120th Yobel year. This is the story that is told in Numbers 15. And it is comprehensive, and it explains exactly who's going to be there and what each of these individuals does for them and how that all plays out in God's plan. And God will tell you something that is essential for us to understand. And that is that Dode's sacrifice and Pesach, and particularly Matzah, where he carried our guilt into Sheol to deposit it there, never to be seen again. And then as the Bakor fulfilled Bakurim, firstborn children, on the next day, in his second of 3 lives. And exactly the moment that he said he would complete it, which was a Friday, April 9th of 33 CE. He explained that date when he was talking to Daniel in 555 BCE and gave a starting point for the return to restore Jerusalem in 444 BCE. And
Weren't you there?
And then had 476 years, 21 days from that moment that he would fulfill being cut off, but not for himself, which is the completion of Chag Matzah, which is April 9th of 33 CE. So he gave us the exact date, and then in the 22nd Mizmor, he told us how he would fulfill Passover by being crucified 600 years before crucifixion was even invented as a form of death.
And that is told in first person.
Yeah. So it's pretty astonishing, and it shouldn't have been missed, but nonetheless, Dode did these things, and he did offer his corporeal body this way, and his Bashar, his herald, which also means corporeal body, by the way, will offer his Bashar as the herald on Towrah to complete this equation and purge the religiosity of the remnant of God's people so that they're prepared to re-enter the Garden of Eden as the whole earth is restored to it, and more importantly, so they can be betrothed to the returning king and become royal as God returns with his beloved Son. That is God's story. And presenting those analogies to you, explaining what had previously been a mystery, even identifying who is the Antichrist, providing the timeline so that you know what events are going to happen on the upcoming 2 Teruahs. The first being the 11th, or maybe the 22nd, I'll get this right. Imagine all the dates that I have to keep in my head and
it
speak extemporaneously here. But the Shabat of the 22nd of May of 2026 is when Israel will be eviscerated with a state of Islamic terror carved out of her mix, making Israel indefensible.
Utterly.
And it is the beginning of the time of troubles, and that's what this 9th book of the Yada Yahowah series is called. It's the Sarah. And then on the following Shabuah will be the harvest of Shabuah, that is the 11th of June in 2027. 3.5 years later, Elia and Yada will arrive on Passover, the 18th of April of 2030. That'll be 33 days after the corporeal manifestation of Hasatan announces that he is master of this world, that he is claiming in Jerusalem, and also that he is divine. And all hell continues to break loose on earth. Many die. The planet is ravaged. As Elia and Yada continue to convey Yahweh's testimony, to encourage as many as possible to capitalize on the Teruah Lakot, which is a gleaning of olives, and then attend the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, so they might enter the millennial Shabat as mortals purged of their religious guilt. This is that story, and it has never been understood until now. So by jumping, as we have in Daniel in the 8th chapter, from Alexander's death and the division of his empire, in directly now to this conclusion as it is caught up in the rise of the defiant ones, we're witnessing something not heretofore disclosed. Satan, as the final beast, will claim Alexander's legacy as his own, becoming great in his own eyes, in addition to divine. And where was Alexander at this time?
Babylon.
When we read the 14th chapter of Yeshaya, Isaiah, as he describes the role that Satan will play in the last days, where does he identify him with? Babylon. That is not by accident.
Nope.
And so we are going to see Satan as the final beast, claiming Alexander's legacy, becoming great in his own ideas and his...
He's going to be a legend in his own mind.
Yeah, he's going to be presented
Just
exactly
like
the way
he
that Trump is
now.
presented by MAGAs and in the White House staff, as if he were a god.
Mm-hmm.
There is even hint here of the Roman Church rising from the fallen empire, which should not be surprising since it is the world's largest organization, and Satan has been its god
For a very long time.
from the beginning. You see, Satan in Isaiah 14 doesn't actually say that he wants to rise above the Almighty. The word that is used is Elyon. And Elyon is El, God.
Mm-hmm.
But the own ending means all things pertaining to. But the Y makes it the hand of God. So all things pertaining to the hand of God is who he wants to rise above.
That would be Dode.
The hand of God is Dode. And so the one who replaced Dode in the most popular religion in the world, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, indeed. That is what
Even in
Hasatan
Islam,
has
yeah.
accomplished, and he's already fulfilled that prophecy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And then, just as it was with Paul and Muhammad, the extent of demon possession of, now we know it's Donald J. Trump, and boy, Satan's going to have to do a lot to keep his boy ambulatory. Well, he's not going to keep him ambulatory. He's going to be in a wheelchair,
I wonder
according
if Trump
to
made him sign a non-disclosure.
to these prophecies. But my goodness, yeah, it's he's still got to keep him alive up to that point. And boy, do we have major deterioration of his brain. He is nothing now but a confabulator. There's almost nothing that
He's a clown.
correlation between what he says and reality. The only thing he can speak about with any clarity is me, myself, and I.
Of course. I'm wonderful in my own mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his
I'm a
world.
wonderful person.
So it's
I stopped
apparent.
7 wars.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's claimed that he has solved 6 wars when he hasn't solved any wars, and he is in the midst of screwing up several of those wars, like the one between Israel and Iran.
He's got ships off the coast of
and
Venezuela.
the one in Ukraine, which the United States started some 30 years ago.
Couldn't stop that.
He's about to turn those into catastrophes.
Yes.
All the while, he has put India now in the lap of China and Russia,
and Russia,
and that is just
Firmly.
an absolute disaster for America's reserve
And the
currency
Europeans hate
status.
him.
And there's really nothing now that can be done to salvage the American economy.
No.
So he is going to literally destroy America. That's why he's going to have to go to Israel. Well, he was going to Israel because Satan knows that it doesn't matter in the end, even if there are plenty of Goyim left. Well, there will be many Goyim that will be collected and will be brought into the millennial Shabbat, and there will be many Goyim who are part of the harvest of Shabuah. Probably none in the Towrah harvest, but there will be a remnant of Goyim that will be in Jerusalem for the sacrifice of the Adam of Perah on Towrah. But the fact of the matter is, it's a homecoming. It's a family reunion. Mm-hmm. He is being wed to the adulterous woman that represents the religious nature of Israel, who is now purged. God makes it very clear that the covenant is being restored with Yisrael and Yehudim. And so if there are no Israelites, if the Muslims kill them all, which is their intent, that's the whole nature of Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. That is what Marxists are chanting now. It's what Muslims are chanting worldwide. If Satan pulls that off, he actually exterminates Jews and eliminates Israel, which is the focus right now between Marxists and Muslims, some 4 billion people worldwide. Then there is no homecoming, because God's not coming back because there are some goy that might be interested. It's just not doing that. The homecoming is to Israel. Those what the promises say. And unless we are successful in causing Israel to recognize that God has a name and it ain't Hashem.
Nope.
And it ain't G-D. And that until they embrace that name, they have no chance. And until they come to realize that the Messiah is known and it ain't Jesus, and that the Messiah and Son of God and former and returning King is Dode David, and that he fulfilled Passover, Matzah and Bakodim, there is no hope.
No, so, first they have to give up the lies on the horse shit, on the rabbis. They got to go.
Well, there will be some who separate themselves from the rabbis. Mm-hmm. There'll be some who separate themselves from left and right-wing politics. Those who can't, those who are overtly Marxist, those who are overtly Haredim, they're gone. There's no reason to even talk to them. They can't be saved. They can't be reasoned with. They're going to be that pile of carcasses that is in the story in the 15th chapter.
They get the black chariot
of Numbers. That is the story. They will be in the black chariot. God's going to remove them from the earth in the black chariot while he gathers those who can be omitted once purged into the conditions restored of Eden for Sukkah. And attend the homecoming of Yom Kippurim. He's going to pick them up in the white chariot. And so there are 4 chariots. And
wouldn't you say that Towrah is actually Yahweh's favorite day?
No. I know that's something you've been trying to convince me of for some time, but no, we disagree.
He calls it the day of days. It's awesome.
No. I think that Towrah will be the most spectacular day in human history. I mean, nothing will compare to it in terms of what's going to happen. I mean, all religion, politics, militarism, conspiracy will be expunged from the earth, all gone in an instant. The very things that have driven humankind, that have created civilizations, that have caused wars, all of it's gone in an instant. Yeah. And the entire earth is terraformed back into the conditions experienced at Eden. That makes it a pretty unique day.
Yeah, I'll say.
There's going to be a fire that the flames are going to leap to heavens, and waters that are going to dance off the Temple Mount to purge this mortal remnant of Yisrael. Yeah, that's going to be pretty spectacular. God himself's going to light the fire. You're going to have the greatest orator in human history that's going to orchestrate all of this, and that is Elia, who is already practiced at roasting a bull and also of expunging the Israel of religion and politics. God's going to prepare this mortal remnant of his people by purging them of their religious and political guilt. Now, there is a difference, and I was starting to hint at this earlier. While Dode's sacrifice on Pesach and Matzah, particularly Matzah, can purge all manner of religion and political guilt, no matter how bad we have been previously, the sacrifice of the Atom of Parah is only for indiscretions, for
It's very specific. Yes.
guilt that is by omission rather than commission.
That's right.
So you can be someone who has been misled politically or religiously and benefit. But if you are somebody who is belligerent, overt, and you're misleading others because you are promoting your religion, you're one of those numbskulls that I see on my feed all the time on Facebook that is talking about some stupid notion that is a Jewish excuse in Judaism for some idiotic thing. You're in serious trouble. Then you cannot be purged. You cannot be saved. You are not going forward. And so the Atom of Parah can't save the religious. The religious can't be saved. God,
that would include the mother.
they're part of the piles of corpses.
Yep.
So that is a difference at this particular time. So these are really vivid analogies.
Yeah.
It's a very well-crafted story, and the essence of this story goes all the way back to the time of creation when God is telling it. And it permeates the story of the Torah. It's everywhere in the story, the Torah, exactly what God's going to do with these three individuals. So you
A ram, a bull, and a goat.
Yeah, you ought to be paying attention because you're hearing it now for the first time. And it is something that needs to be known. It needs to be shared. It needs to be embraced. You know, there is a myth among Jews that Noah was the father of the covenant and that he is the founder of Judaism. When the very reason that Yahweh chose Noah is that unlike the Nephilim that were all around, he disassociated from them. He was out on his own with his sons and their wives and his wife, and he had disassociated from those who were religious and political around the Black Sea. In fact, the term that God uses, they were Hamas.
Yep.
Around the Black Sea. They were terrorists.
Yes.
And the only person that wasn't among them was Noah. So Noah was chosen because he wasn't religious. And the fact of the matter is that Noach is not a exemplar of the covenant. Noach, the only reference to the covenant during Noach's experience is the rainbow at the end of the process becomes an early sign of the covenant, which then becomes later a circumcision. But with Noach, he listened to Yahweh, where in Judaism they listened to rabbis. And then he did as Yahweh instructed, as opposed to rabbis where God says, listen, Yisrael, Yahweh is God, Yahweh is one. They will instead replace God's name with Adonai, and they will belt it out as opposed to listen. Yep. That wasn't
very Babylonian to erase someone's name, don't you know?
Yes. So this is the story that we need to tell, that we need to be at the forefront of letting Jews know the harm that they did to themselves by erasing Yahweh's name, the great harm they did to themselves, and the indignity they perpetrated on God by replacing Yahweh's Messiah and his son and our king with Bar Kokhba.
With their own disgusting dupes.
And then starting a religion with Rabbi Akiba that would cause the land of Yehudah to be renamed Palestine. And then to cause the diaspora and the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Jews.
Millions.
And he's the founder of Rabbinic Judaism.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to overcome. And we are going to go back into the story of Numbers 11 through 15, because it's important for Jews to recognize who they have been and who they are, and why God divorced himself from them, and why they are currently estranged, and why they are divorced, and why the only way to solve that is to return to him. And they need to understand.
They think Hashem
that
is on their side.
process.
I'm telling you, if you don't know someone's name, how can they come to your assistance at all?
It starts with
How does
Yahweh's
that
name, and thus far, there's been virtually 100% defiance
Yes.
among Israelis to embrace Yahweh's name.
Among
And
Yehud, period.
You can't get past that one, and you still hang on to Hashem and G-D. You're done. I mean, there is no step beyond that.
Nope.
Nothing can be resolved. We're having a love fest over there between Richard and Asher somehow, but so far we're still good to go. So it's apparent that the initial two lines of what we have just considered address the rise of the Torah-less one, as no one will ever be as pasha, as rebellious or defiant. But fortunately, his claim to fame will fail in the end, and he is not going to reign very long in that role. He starts on the Ides of March 15th of 2030, and he will be dispatched to Sheol by the 24th of September 2033. It's not a very long run. So his claim to glory will be that of a political shyster, a religious con man, a man who will claim religious power and yet will be impotent. He'll present himself as the King of Kings when his domain will be between his own ears. This will be the fierce face, however, of Satan. Now, fortunately, he will be appended by one who will embrace Bien, who will come to understand the riddles that have escaped so many. In fact, the one with the spirit of Bien will be the first to recognize Trump as the devil's advocate. And that is the story that Yahshua tells so eloquently. Well, it's actually Yahweh speaking through Yahshua in what is now the 11th chapter of Isaiah, and the seven spirits that empower the Choder. Therefore, becoming prominent at this time is someone who finally solves this riddle, becoming prominent on God's side, on the people's side. And he will be Bien. He will distinguish the truth by finding the common denominators and by making reasoned associations. He will cheda. He will resolve these puzzling enigmas by asking the right questions. And he will challenge conventional thinking to peel back the layers, ultimately exposing the picture, framing it, showing every detail, every hue, every texture, and showing it from the perspective it was meant to be seen. You will know your place in that picture. And it sure sounds like he is going to channel his Enter Elia while doing so, mocking and taunting those who have obscured reality and have led God's people astray. As we approach this next installment of relevant information regarding the human incarnation of Hasatan, the adversary, we find him either Atsam or Atsam, depending on how the three Hebrew letters are vocalized. And I believe in full disclosure, so I like to tell you that there are options when these options persist in the text. Atsam speaks of becoming increasingly powerful and of gaining influence over vast numbers of places and or people. It depicts the deployment of an enormously oppressive, crushing, and destructive force. But it also conveys the idea of choosing people's eyes, or closing, I should say, people's eyes so tightly that they are blinded and can no longer see the light. Atsam can be used to convey breaking bones as well. And that is because etzem, which is a noun rather than a verb, actually means bones. It is deployed to describe the human skeleton and backbone. Etzem is found addressing the essential essence of something which is vital to life, such as we're told that chag matzah is etzem. It is essential to us, which is a shame. Well, not as a good thing that chag matzah is essential to us. It's a shame what rabbis have done, because they've turned Passover into a 7-day celebration, not recognizing that Passover is simply the first day of the 7 days of the essential chag matzah, and that matzah is the most important or essential day of that week, because the date that our guilt is removed by Dode as he carried it into Sheol.
We prefer to play games with our matzah.
Boy, do you ever. Beyond the rich palette of possibilities painted by the verb atsam, itstem, koach also conveys a wide variety of meanings. That which is koach has the potential to exert an imposing force, to exercise vast authority, and to deploy massive resources and wealth. The koach shout loudly and have the capacity even to perform miraculously. The secondary connotations are tangibly related, and tangentially, I should say, and they are germane to the context of describing an adversarial beast. A koach is an unclean and cold-blooded animal, and in particular, a serpentine reptile. It can depict anything from a powerful crocodile with its forceful bite to a venomous snake with a debilitating venom. It can be used to describe a monitor lizard which kills by wounding and infecting its victim, or a chameleon.
Or a Komodo dragon.
Yeah, which changes its color to blend into the environment. Also relevant, koach is the root of kachad, which tells us that Satan wants to conceal his true identity and agenda, keeping others from knowing that he is the power behind the beast, at least up to the point when the guises will be finally lifted in the end. In this way, he can destroy the means to know God and trash the Torah's credibility while annihilating as many souls as possible. One of the discoveries that I made when writing the first edition of what now became the 5 volumes of goddamn religion, there are 4,200 pages of absolute proof from the Islamic text, the earliest Islamic sources, that Allah was not God, that Muhammad was not a prophet, and that Islam is a murderous death cult. That first edition was called Prophet of Doom.
Yeah.
And as I wrote Prophet of Doom, you're constantly confronted by the reality that Muhammad is a very demonic character.
Oh, yeah.
He admits that he's demon possessed. He is psychopath. He is a psychopath. He is murderous. He is a terrorist.
Sadistic.
He has no empathy. He engages constantly in the slave trade. He is an unrelenting pedophile. 66, and he's having sex with a 6-year-old girl. He's a warmonger. He is incestuous. He is a constant rapist. And not just a rapist. He would kill a woman's sons. He would kill a woman's brothers. He would kill a woman's husband and torture to death her father, and then rape her. This is, nobody more vile has ever lived.
No.
And that was Muhammad. And yet, when you read what Allah says in the Quran, where he spends all of his time in hell, all of it, And in hell, he's constantly inflicting grievous tortures on
Women.
those who did not capitulate to him. And he roasts men over a spit to the point where their skin finally all sears off. And then so that the torture could last forever, he gives them a new skin so he could torture them some more. And then he makes them eat molten pitch and then devour thorns. And he's just constantly involved hundreds of times over, torturing people.
Sadistic
And that's
fantasy.
all he does. He's hell's warden, and he's incredibly sadistic. And so, and then the Quran has entire surahs that praise devils.
Yeah.
And so with Muhammad admitting that he is demon possessed, with Allah being incredibly dishonest and demonic and sadistic in his nature, and his appetite to kill and torture Jews, and Muhammad being his alter ego, they're being indistinguishable, there is this tendency to say, well, they must be the same, that they're one in the same, that Muhammad is Satan and that Satan is Muhammad. And, you know, I think ultimately Allah is Satan, and that ultimately Satan found an exceedingly reprehensible man, a sexual pervert, a man who had no empathy.
A man who is just as twisted as he is.
And he found another one prior to that in Paul, to write the Christian New Testament, who also admitted he was demon possessed and admitted he was a sexual pervert and who lied about everything. And then he found a third one now, also a sexual pervert, a man who lies about everything. And who has no empathy. And we're speaking of Donald Trump. He has a type.
Oh, yeah, he's got a type. Psychopathic.
So Satan is not just the power behind the corporeal manifestation of himself. He picked a man that resembles himself, just as he did with Muhammad, just as he did with Paul. And in this way, he can destroy the means to know God. So the nuance of Koach appears chosen to visibly describe one of the most anxiously expected and infamous figures in human history. With Koach deployed twice in this next pronouncement, we are being encouraged to consider the full palette of potential meanings, which is why it is better to convey too many of these possibilities rather than too few. And in this regard, with this prophetic portrait of the Torah-less one, of Donald Trump, and as he has now been demon-possessed, it is rather obvious that we were correct regarding our assessment concerning the timing of the previous statements. The arrival of the one who is now resolving these riddles for you does not preclude Satan and his stooge from corrupting the preponderance of people or of annihilating billions. His purpose is to make it possible for some to survive, just as the situation was among probably 400,000 Israelites over the age of 20, and only two of those 400,000 were allowed into the promised land.
That's right.
So his purpose is to make it possible for some to survive the onslaught and to make it back into Eden.
Quality over quantity.
In the anticipation that they will be receptive to the alternative approach to life and to liberty that Yahweh is offering. Therefore, of the demon-possessed Coppercon, we learn. So his controlling, authoritarian style will exude a crushing and powerful influence, as he will exhibit the propensity to be a real bone breaker, as a constricting snake, but not through his own serpentine capability, nor his own authority, accomplishments, or snakish qualifications. So it will be astonishing and astounding, awesomely amazing in its miraculous and supernatural fulfillment, unlike anything prior to it. as he will be exceedingly corrupt and disruptive, debauched and depraved. He will be in a rush to appear successful, claiming to be victorious at this time by feigning prosperity as he pushes his agenda forward, being forceful and overbearing. But his actions will be depraved, corrupting and destructive, annihilating and exterminating great multitudes, including the strongest and most accomplished and powerful, in addition to the set-apart people. Daniel 8:24, and we have just seen a portrait of
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Boy, there is no one ever that fits this description as adroitly as does the
In a
Coppercon.
rush to call himself wonderful, victorious.
I think it makes
Great.
it's probably worth us taking a quick trip through these words again, but this is just too good. We will return to this in our next program.
Sounds good.
But here it is. So, Trump is controlling. He is considered to be Dear Donald, a fascist leader.
Yeah.
Immediately when he started signing all manner of hundreds of executive orders as opposed to working through Congress. I think he's only had one successful vote in Congress, and that was by
Not
one vote.
surprising.
One vote. So his style is entirely authoritarian.
Mhm.
So he is an authoritarian in a country that has a president that has very limited powers,
Executive
but
branch has
not
checks.
according to him.
Yeah.
And he is going to exude a crushing and powerful influence. And boy, is that what he is doing. He is crushing the life out of America and the Western world.
Mhm.
And he is exhibiting the propensity to be a real bone breaker. I call him the Hannibal Lecter of politics. He devours his own.
Yep.
Trump only knows two types of people: Trump and Trump enemies. And even the psychopaths that are in part of his circus telling him how wonderful he is, they all will go the way of the dodo.
Actually, I think he has three types of friends: enemies, former enemies, potential ready to be enemies.
Yes.
That's it.
Even those that Trump calls friends,
Yeah,
even
they're
those
not.
that,
They're always in the.
it's like and Elon Musk, they were bros.
Mhm.
Everyone ends up that way. Look at Michael Cohen, who was his fixture,
Oh.
the lawyer that went into the trenches to resolve all of the terrible trash and perversity that Trump was involved in, and he saw to it that his own counselor went off to prison.
Mhm.
Everybody that was associated with Trump and the first term
Ends up worse off than they did ever.
ever. There has been no one who has ever been as much of a cannibal
He's destructive.
of his own than Donald Trump. He is a real bone breaker. He will exert considerable influence to pulverize not just his opposition, but his supporters.
Uh-huh. Oh,
I mean,
hates
he has no respect for MAGA. None.
them.
No
It's
respect
hilarious.
for America. No
It's
respect
hilarious.
for anything. And he doesn't even like himself.
Hmm.
The truth is, he doesn't even like himself. He knows himself. He knows he is a sexual pervert and a complete loser and fraud. He knows who he is. He's just trying to hide it. And so he's going, it's just like Satan. Satan knows he's the adversary.
He knows he's
But
a loser.
One of the things that I learned very early on is that Satan does not want to be known as the adversary. He wants to be known and worshipped as if either he were God or he were the Son of God.
Mhm.
That's what he wants. And so anybody that's calls themselves a Satan worshiper, they're not worshiping Satan.
No.
Because Satan does not want the adversary
They're
title.
worshiping a fantasy.
That's why the Quran and the New Testament attack the Satan title.
Yes.
Because the only
More
way for
credible.
the Lord, who happens to be Satan, to be worshipped as if he were not Satan and God
Gotta make
is
it up.
for him to trash his adversary title and distinction. And the same thing is true with Donald Trump. The same thing was true with Paul. The same thing was true with Muhammad. They knew they were murderous, disgusting, sexually perverted scumbags.
Mhm.
They knew that nothing they were saying was true.
Politics is no different.
But they cover
They
it
know
up.
that nothing they say is true. They're perverts. They're disgusting, vile creatures, and they just serve they hate the people.
Paul,
serve.
Muhammad, and Donald Trump use exactly the same
Exactly.
technique. And
Right.
there's two things that they do, and they do it over and over again. One is they threaten. So it is known that if you tick off Donald Trump, if you tell him the truth, if you dare stand up to him, he will unleash holy hell. And that he is the worst bone breaker in the history of politicians worldwide. He will assure that anyone who criticizes him is destroyed.
Character assassination.
The second thing he does is he deflects by distraction.
Mhm.
Every week there's a new level of chaos, something that takes everyone's attention away from the stupid thing he did that was so destructive the previous week.
Yes.
And so Paul had a new argument in every paragraph, and it just took your mind away from the stupid thing he said in the previous paragraph.
Makes it
The
all
same thing
technicolor.
was true
Mhm.
with Muhammad. That is Satan's style. It's argumentum by distraction.
Yeah.
It is
Keep
a
it
logical.
technicolor.
It is a logical fallacy, but they play it to the hilt.
Yeah.
And it says he is a constricting snake. This is a Koach, this creepy serpent and chameleon, concealing his serpentine and reptilian nature to hide his true identity, but that can suffocate the life out of every victim. I was always had fun when I did back in my Shattering Myths syndicated radio days. And I did a whole series for an entire week, 3 hours a day for 5 days on debunking conspiracies. But I debunked them all, except one. I said, this is a personal favorite of mine. We're not going to debunk this one just because it's too much fun. And that was reptilian overlords.
Sure was.
And so I did it just as a joke for mocking.
David
But
Icke's
if you
Reptilian.
look at pictures of Donald Trump and his face now, God, he looks like a damn reptile. It is disgusting. He's got scales on his face. So I do view that Donald Trump is exactly this, but he does wear a lot of makeup to try to hide it. But not through his own serpentine capability or his own authority, accomplishments, or snakish qualifications. So Yahweh denounced and punished Hasatan by reducing Hasatan from a Karub, which would have been a highest level of Malak, a spiritual envoy or messenger, to a serpent. But Satan doesn't want to be known as a serpent.
No.
And he has very limited capabilities as a serpent. So he chooses men that have some appeal in terms of their style that can take him beyond being just a snake. And Muhammad, Paul, and Donald Trump are his type that do that. So Satan is going to rise to power by using a man who has amassed great power and wealth, who is already a master at the style of duplicity and depravity.
And twisted perversions that he's into. Yes.
So this is
He's
why
got to find a nice, squishy little spot to squat.
So
That
it will
would be
be
Donald.
astonishingly and astoundingly awesome, amazing, and its miraculous and supernatural fulfillment, unlike anything prior. What is being said here is the thing that has always caused me the most consternation, and naming, which I did a few months ago, saying that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. He is the Torah-less one. He's the great betrayer. He is the corporeal manifestation of Satan. He is currently demon-possessed. Is that these events go out another 8 years in 1 month. Yeah. We are now in September. This is now going to be September 24th. So 20 days, 8 years and 20 days from today. And he's got to survive that long.
Yeah.
He doesn't
he's
have to
in
stand
bad
on his
shape.
feet that long because he's projected in a really flashy, gaudy wheelchair.
Mhm.
But he's got to keep that decrepit old man who's losing his mind, who is totally now into confabulation where he doesn't have any clue between what he's saying and reality. He's got to keep him going for another 8 years. And that's been the biggest concern, is how does that happen? But, Satan still got some
He's gonna supercharge
tricks-
him Satan style.
tricks up his sleeve. And so we are going to have the Reptilian Overlord going to make that conspiracy true. And it's going to be some astounding and amazing, miraculous, supernatural kinds of events that cause Donald Trump to survive this long.
I'm going to have to Google that and see if David Icke has gotten onto the fact that Donald Trump is a reptilian.
They were, with Z and Putin, we're talking about doing organ transplants to prolong life. I don't know, with Donald Trump, you'd probably have to start with the brain.
Most likely.
Brain, well, and then give him a heart since he doesn't have one. I'm not sure he has a brain either, so it might not even be a transplant. Who knows how that would all work. And he will be exceedingly corrupt, debauched, and depraved. I'm going to stop right there because there is nobody ever. I mean, except maybe Muhammad.
His
I mean,
best friend was Jeffrey Pedo Epstein.
It's
debauched.
He was Jeffrey Epstein's best friend for 15 years for a reason.
Not only that, he is Genovese crime family ties and all kinds of other stuff. He's grotesque.
Yep. So here we are. He will be exceedingly corrupt, destructive, debauched, and depraved, grossly immoral, slimy, putrid, spoiled, and perverted. If I were to give you
Sounds
those
like a movie.
attributes, and I were to tell you, name the person.
T for Donald Trump?
Outside of MAGA,
Yeah.
and even the diehard of MAGA, I mean, 99.9% of the world's population
They
say,
get it.
there he is. That's the guy. Donald J. Trump. Great place
He's
for
the
us to
one.
end this program. It is obvious that when you translate the words completely and accurately, that the story that Yahweh has told by way of his prophets speak powerfully to us today and explain where we are on God's timeline and who the players are that are going to interact with the world as we know it between now and then. So thank you very much for listening, and good night.